All right, fellas, so since the last time I spoke, I was teaching you about the ideas that I do, and that includes this ethical framework that we must assume through our soul into physical reality, so then we could gain control of physical reality and bring it into being as something that is real, and that's something that our biological systems can actually use and obtain resource from. And so a big component of all of this is to get rich. Actualization is getting very rich, because as I start to imagine more creations within my mind, there's this component that there's this material substance that you need to collect, right? We're material objects through our layers, but the external world trades upon what our physical realities have created in the sense of our value. And there's this background and this huge abstract framework of your intrinsic value, but within your concentration through logos, the thing that Christ embodied when he was synchronized within reality through absolute alignings, there's this blooming effect of more material multiplicities. And so getting rich is the token to that, and there's actually a lot of ways. And so I wanted to first teach about some of this book today again. How to Win Friends and Influence People. So last time we did Principle 1. Just wanted to give a quick reminder of what this one is. If you want to gather the honey, don't kick over the beehive. Pretty much don't offend someone before you ask. And which is funny because there's actually a rule something like that. Look, I noticed the more pieces of wisdoms that you gather, you get to actually notice them in real time and have a hyper awareness, the godlike eye to see above things. So this book here, there's a rule that is very similar to that. I'm gonna say it. Remember, it's learn to utilize enemies. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Be wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they are easily aroused to envy. They also become spoiled and tyrannical, but hire a former enemy, and he will be more loyal to a friend, because he has more to prove. In fact, you have more to fear from friends than from enemies. If you have no enemies, find a way to make them. And so this is one attitude where like they contradict, but they're actually both very high articulated structures of awareness regarding don't kick over the beehive before you gather the honey. In this sense, it's like before you connect with the individual that you want to help grow, but also to help grow with you, there's this exchange that does occur around us, maybe not in the forefront, but there is a trading substance because of this creation of value that we combine. And so we kind of just simplify that and call it money, right? But through this rule real quick is never put too much trust in friends. And even the people that you actually get along with in this book, you still have to be hyper aware that you're not trying too hard to be them or be with them or have them on your side. It's also to be able to always be detached from an outcome. And that detachment of completely is what creates you as the individual to not really care about others' opinions and what the world cares about you. This is where I think a big formula of bravery comes in, right? We're still talking about this here. We're actually talking about a lot of things at this second here, but realizing through this chapter here, it's actually a very smart strategy, because you're actually not going to get along with everyone. You're not going to get along with everyone. Trust me, it's very difficult, and the more you try is kind of like the more you exhaust yourself, and you're likely not authentic anymore. But it is important to always assume that that love, because remember our formula of love, power, winning. This is kind of like the triad, I believe, that it's easy simplification for me to remember what I want. And winning for me is actually money. It's not necessarily power. For me, winning is money. It's getting extremely rich. And so, remember, with this chapter, like I was saying with the power book, is that even though you're not going to get along with everyone through, let's say, your empathy and grace, there's still a subconscious competitive nature to us humans. And this is what that chapter is actually saying, is actually to challenge them, to bring them on your side. And so it's actually something that is subtle in certain ways. I would say through looking at a book like this, it's kind of like I would say most recent example, like I usually do this, I think when I tell people they remind me of a book, and I'll tell them about a specific chapter, what they remind me of from that book. And so it's kind of like, okay, they see their own integrity with such a book, where the way you perceive them, they would want to keep that high image of themselves, for themselves, but also just from the subconscious judgment of what they perceive as better. They could perceive you as better than them, or with them, or below them, but the goal is to get within the circles, within many humans. And I think that strategizing and maneuvering between hierarchies, social hierarchies, that I believe this book kind of demonstrates, because of the dark nature of human beings, of how we play these power games. But this is using love as power, right? And so on to chapter 2, give honest and sincere appreciation. So this is a very cool chapter, and the way I would like to teach you this one, good simplifications of the chapters here. Give honest, sincere appreciation. So I was reading about this, and I was just thinking, like, how would I create the feeling of that vulnerability to fully appreciate? Because you'll notice when you're gaining power that there's certain disciplines that you may do because it's true and it's your authentic self, but it's also things that may not exactly be you, and things that you're actually trying extra hard to do. And this is where people can say that the masculine power can develop into something like ego. And I actually thought of something that Mike Tyson said, of like, he was like, no, I don't care about legacy anymore. Like, legacy is another word for ego. And it's interesting to believe that yourself, it's interesting to think in my philosophy that it's like, okay, the goal is to actually believe you're a god without the ego, without the arrogance, and so that's why it's like, the darker you swing into certain ideas is actually like you run into polar opposite ideas, where it's like, okay, that's how you assume as being one. And this is where many books can fill in all those blank spots of unconscious power, unconscious love, unconscious winning that we can grasp. And that full realization is something that we've perceived as gold. We've perceived it because it looks like the sun. It's always kept its value. It's still very relevant. And we associate with first place, right? One. And where was I going with this? And that's money. That's the resource. That's the gold that you get from the dragon. So that's why, at least we'll put this book down, giving honest and sincere appreciation, it helps you gain more of that money, right? Because you're getting along with others. The more hands you shake, the more money you make. This is a principle. And honest and sincere. I was kind of just like walking around my room, and I was reading this chapter, and I was just saying out loud all the people that I appreciate and exactly why. But it was an unfiltered sense of love and appreciation. You know what I mean? It's a very like letting go feeling. And that's one way to practice it, because a part of you that is the winner, it doesn't want to appreciate the people that you beat, because there's a part of you that, since you're winning and they're losing, not that you're seeing them as a loser, but there's this unconscious, it's a biological awareness that we have, that we are socially ranked, and that confidence is what radiates you up hierarchies. And in a sense, that is bravery, that is confidence, that is extremely righteous. And when you're actually climbing up these social hierarchies, you have to actually always constantly remember the people that helped you get there. And since we're all in unity, we're not necessarily, we assume our own dominance through what we see, but it's always reminded that, you know, I could definitely kill you, but I could definitely turn you into a god. So that's kind of like what this is going to do through, you know, the deals you make to get more money. Because it also follows along with the challenging someone, because I noticed that through this book, we're going to kind of jump through this one too. This is a very interesting book. That when you promise to make people money, then that is a very enticing deal, because you're betting on them and you believe in them that they can keep going and increase what is there. You know, it's no different than comparing someone to a book that they remind you of. I think it's the same exact thing, because there's this potential that they could see and that they agree with, because, well, perhaps you were less condescending and judgmental when you didn't want to be in the pursuit of this negotiation that is happening. I don't want to turn you into my enemy. I don't exactly want to turn you into my friend. There's a happy medium of there's a business relationship. There's a customer and there's a client and business owner relationship, and a part of the fragment of that is the willing to want to serve them. And so when you're creating these deals, they're not to hurt anyone. They're to increase them, or to at least give them the value that they want. And the offer is very, very interesting word that I believe he used in here, because when I compare it to my philosophical academic mind, offer, I think about the ultimate humbleness of being able to give yourself and all your potential to the world, full actualization. But in the offer framework, I would say that it's helped me, because through my ability to create influential sentences where you could begin to agree with what I'm saying. And there's this momentum of yes, 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 until they make the ultimate yes, which is the sale. At least that's one formula of doing that. But when it comes to the offer, it's definitely a hustle book. I think this is a great book for hustlers, because I would say one deal that I think that actually worked out and that was very enticing for others was I began drop shipping, and I was reselling super cheap clothes. I was getting them for 25 cents to $1, and I had so much product and I had good relationships, and through those deals then I was able to get discounts on other things. So some things maybe paying a quarter for, it was very low, but we would able to resell clothes for $10, $15, $20, $30. That was probably our margin. But the goal into helping others get into this was that, okay, well, we're going to turn each of our cell phones into an antenna that is a broadcasting signal that will by default pull in views and people to our stores that we have created, and that are cross-selling and marketing just at a bigger scale rather than what your cell phone is limited to. And so through that, there was a development of, I think, product that was going to become more original, but we were still working on outsourcing cheap materials and finding people who'd create. But I was pretty much responsible for selling this marketing agency idea, similar to what inspired it was watching people talk about drop shipping and talk about Andrew Tate, for example, how he had people that were increasing his views like crazy, that gave him the virality that is important in today's success. And so the offer could be something like, It's perfect. It's to actually, this is what, like, just the cover and the sentence tells you, like, how to do it, how to make offers so good people feel stupid saying no. And like they just have to be so undeniable, because like in this sense, like I was building these stores for free, I was shipping out the product, and I was posting all the product, I was outsourcing all the product, and they were still getting a percentage for what I was selling because of the image that they were, posting, or that they allowed me to post. It was just an incentive, and it's like, well, I'm doing all the work. Here's some passive income, and sure, you like clothes, sure you don't, but you still have this a digital money print that even you can join and put your clothes in here, and we split the percentage if we sell versus you. It was very interesting, and it was just through some simple, I would say, skill sets like persuasive writing, having a good offer. I'm gonna try to look for that offer again, and that was pretty much taken from like my own confidence of like outreach through sales that I've actively pursued one-to-one, but also through, I think this was the first time where I was messaging multiple people. And in his second book, he talks about leads, not just offers. Like, well, hold on. So offers, again, this word was so cool to me, because I just think about like, what is your offering? What is your offering? And I think about this symbol, like, what is your offering? What is your offering? And like, it's like, what's the best deal that you can give them where they're going to win? They're going to win, and there's no risk. This is a very good choice for you. What are you waiting for? So then, like, that's why, at least within your pursuits, it's really about, like, especially like when my team was getting sales. My bad. So, the big secret of dealing with people. So that's going to be the next chapter, but don't criticize, condemn, or complain. That was very important, because this is how you make people believe in themselves, because the opposite, you kind of belittle them, and it's hard to do that unless you're going to inspire fear to control their actions, or you could inspire them into doing the right actions. And yeah, honest and sincere appreciation. Wow. Yeah, so I would say, like, think about this chapter, and just think about everyone, like, you might have to go on a walk. Like, it's something that you probably have to do quietly, because it's like, it's such a vulnerable experience with like reality, and through like ultimate humbling, like just thinking everyone from every single picture that just pops into your mind of like whoever it is, whoever, just friends, family, old teachers, future outcomes, even imaginations of people, and like, people that aren't real, at least in this reality. And so that's a very interesting one to do. And then I would say, not kicking over the honey, don't kick over the beehive. This takes, honestly, I think this is like really, this is impulse control, like 101. Definitely, bro. Because I'm actually, it feels like there's a chapter in this book for about that. But I would say, like, because man, people might annoy you. People might get you mad. People might offend you. You may fear someone. You may disagree with someone. There's always going to be a slight resistance in all of our relationships, but all of them could still be utilized to make money. And again, that's through the offer, because yeah, maybe you don't like me, but the deal is just so good, the money's so good, the undeniable proof is there, okay? And so I'm trying to think, like, emotional control is very important, and it's like, how do you develop emotional control? And I believe it's through simple discipline actions. Like, you might have to, like, I've started small, like no cell phone, no social media, no morning cell phone, no afternoon cell phone, no, that's a good start. And then you kind of turn into like no sugar, like the stronger stimulants that you notice that like grab your attention that aren't necessarily productive for future outcomes, then it's really those that, well, like how he says, like the biggest success characteristic is in delayed gratification. And practicing those little micro wins is actually, I believe, where you develop this emotional control, and you start to notice that like the world doesn't like it tries to fidget that out of you, and sometimes it's okay. Never put too much. I'm just like, I wonder if there's, I kind of want to find a chapter if there's one about emotional control here. Conceal your intentions. Always say less than necessary. Hold on, what am I thinking about right now? Emotional control. Man, I feel like those are actually very similar. Oh my gosh. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. Oh my gosh, I'm just thinking about win friends and influence people now. Because like, remember, we're crossbreeding you into becoming a psychological, complete human being that could just be evil, but also be like divine and God and godlike. And so, one sincere and honest move will cover over a dozen of dishonest ones. And let's see that from a business perspective. Remember, it's money oriented, gold oriented, this channel. And so, yeah, it's like, okay, one sincere and honest move will cover your dozens of dishonest ones. And that is very possible, because you could increase value of something that ends up making them obey, making them submit. And so, especially because it's like, okay, well, it changed, it transformed, okay? We forgive. You know, there's a part of the external component that's gonna come in this version. So these are ways that this book teaches you how to capitalize on. And one-hearted gestures of honesty and generosity bring down the guard of even the most suspicious people. And that's very funny when, remember, we're trying to win friends and influence people. There's this like ultimate goodness that you're trying to all be for them. And so open-hearted gestures of honesty, they do bring down like the most, even the people that got the eye on you, right? They'll even like, okay. And then it's just like a relaxation and like a trust that happens. And so this kind of carries on and brings potential into your offer because of the trust that you have created with them. And so once your selective honesty opens a hole in their armor, you can deceive and manipulate them at will. A timely gift, a Trojan horse, will serve the same purpose. And so the last sentence there, once your selective honesty opens a hole in their armor, and through a sale, I would say this, when you know the rapport is there, when you could feel that everyone is on the same page, and there's this momentum of yes. It's like they're not like, it's kind of like, it's like, all right, let's say they have this armor shield, right? Like how the book said. But instead of like, I think it said like when they reveal their armor, what did it say? Opens a hole in their armor. Okay, and then you deceive and manipulate. Instead, I would say the visualization through what we're trying to exercise through our ethical framework, through a businessman's will to bring all the material matter back into existence through getting rich, because you could create things from that matter that the most valuable matter creates multiple piles of more matter. And so, within this book, like, I would say there's not a hole in their armor. Like, you kind of get them to, okay, I'm going to take off my shoulder pad. I'm going to take off my other shoulder pad. Like, I want to sit down and like chill. Like, this guy's really not an enemy of mine. So then, they take off the armor. And like the whole goal from you is kind of like, once they take off that armor, they're going to get a big hug. But it's with your offer and it's with their deal. Like, that's what, like the feeling, remember, it's this feeling that you're trying to place them in and not manipulate them. It's more influence them and inspire them to take the deal because it's good for them and it's going to serve them and their people and their dreams and their reality. And I get what I want. This exchange of value creation consciousness it's an abstract, infinite object, but it's also a finite golden coin, money, dollars. Okay, let's change the world. Goodbye.